Hello, everybody. It's been a while since I've done a live stream here, and many of my followers have been asking me to do a video on what I call Guardians of the Heart, which is a model that I developed for relationships, especially romantic relationships, but it could be any kind of intimate relationship, to allow people to create a model or a terrain where they can grow not only in the quality of the relationship, but in their health and their longevity. And I call it Guardians of the Heart because it's an idea where you give your heart to someone to care for it, and that person gives you his or her heart to care for. So it's a tremendous responsibility. And what you do is you create what I call a covenant of safety, which is a place where you can be safe and honest with each other, and especially to deal with what I call archetypal wounds. And archetypal wounds are a way of that we learn about the intimacy of love. So if you have a loving relationship with your parents and people that are significant in your life, the language of love will be one of caring and sharing and openness and so forth. But in many cases, we have relationships with our parents and other people that are important to us that actually have a shaming or a betrayal or an abandonment component to it. And what we learn is that the language of love requires for us to be abandoned or abandoned, to be shamed or to shame, or to be betrayed or to betray. And that comes into the relationships. And without knowing it, you're bringing in your archetypal wound, and your partner's bringing his or her archetypal wound. And what you're doing is you're speaking the archetypal wounds fluently. And what we do in biocognition is teach you to identify those wounds, and then especially to be able to come up with the antidotes for each of them. And this is done with a technique where you do a contemplative way of coming into embodying the method, but the intellectual part of it I can explain and theoretically, and if you want to, in my books and other videos, I explain it in more detail. So this is more the conceptual model, so you'll know how it works. So if you come into a relationship with shame, the antidote for shame is honor. If you come into a relationship with abandonment, the antidote is commitment. And if you come into a relationship of betrayal or with betrayal in your wounds, then it's a commitment to loyalty. So loyalty for betrayal, shame is dealt with honor, and then abandonment is dealt with commitment. So let's say your partner comes in with shame, and you come in with abandonment. All right, shame requires honor, abandonment requires commitment. So you create a terrain, a relationship of honor and commitment. And anytime that each of you goes into manipulating with the old wounds, you stop and you bring in the antidote. So as you bring in the antidotes, in this case, commitment and honor, not only are you developing a healthy relationship, but psychoneuroimmunologically, you're creating all kinds of immune enhancers, serotonin, oxytocin, especially. And what you're doing is you're bringing in a wellness to the relationship that allows for healthy longevity. Gratitude, generosity are very powerful, and oxytocin, which is a peptide that helps many parts of the body as a heart rate regulator and an immune enhancer. And then admiration without envy brings in dopamine, which is a very good also neurotransmitter of rewards. So what you're doing is indirectly by creating this terrain of wellness, the guardians of the heart, you're not only building a relationship that has sustainability, but you're building a mutual wellness and a mutual longevity of the relationship as well as your health. So this is the idea of guardians of the heart. And if you have any questions, just come on and ask now if you like or later, so I can try to answer them for you. But most of us bring out at least one wound. Some people all three. And without knowing it, we manipulate each other without really wanting to. But in order to regain control when we have felt out of control, then we use the wounding without knowing it and without realizing that we're hurting other people, especially people that you love. And in many cases, what you learn is the language of love, and it doesn't have to be just with the guardians of the heart idea. You come from a family where food is love, and if you don't clean your plate, you don't love. Well, you learn that love has to do with gaining weight because you're going to overeat. And anytime you feel unloved, you're going to overeat. Or every time you feel that you have to offer something, you have to offer food. That is the intimate language of love. But when it comes to romantic relationships, I think Guardians of the Heart is a very powerful way of dealing with a partner that you chose to be with, someone that needs to be very grateful for you choosing that person, and you feeling also very grateful for having that person having chosen you. So it's we don't have any questions right now. I just came on without advertising it or mentioning it, but you can go back and listen to it at any time and be able to ask questions and so forth. So meanwhile, I'll continue to go on and see if you have any questions, and if not, then I will post it later under the lectures series. So what I have noticed is that there's also a relationship between the psychoneuroimmunology, which is the thoughts and emotions affecting the immune, nervous, and endocrine system, and that if you have a pattern of abandonment, it could be intellectual abandonment, it could be emotional, physical, a pattern, not just one time. You tend to, when you go into the abandonment fear, it's a cold emotion because your blood vessels are constricting, and as they constrict, you feel that you just so isolated, so alone, that you feel that you need someone to come and tell you that they're there for you. But if you learn that, what you're doing is you're learning to secrete the stress hormones that causes the constriction, and that can cause an underimmunity that puts you more into the susceptibility of viruses or any kind of pathogen because you're working and living under a sense of alarm that you're going to be abandoned, whether you're abandoning. The shame has been studied more, and we know now that shame causes inflammation. It secretes molecules of inflammation, like a tumor necrosis factor and some of the interleukins. And what happens there is hot. You feel hot. You notice when people are embarrassed or shamed, they turn red. That's the immune system responding and the endocrine system responding as if it were an actual pathogen there, but there isn't because the words are biosymbolic. And that, in the long term, it has not a cause, but a correlation with a lot of autoimmune illness, especially I've seen it very frequently with fibromyalgia and other kinds of illnesses that have to do with inflammation. And it's hot. Then the third, which is the most difficult, is loyalty, which is the antidote. But the wound is betrayal, and betrayal is being tricked. And what you feel is anger. You feel red. You've been tricked. You've been used, and that there's a constriction. But interestingly, you also get vessel constriction. But the constriction there is based on anger. The constriction with abandonment is based on fear. You still have constriction, but in a different way. And there's some correlation, not cause, with people who have that betrayal concept that they live with a lot of anger and a lot of resentment. There's some correlation with the cardiovascular problems and strokes, not a cause. Remember, not a cause, a correlation, a propensity. So you see now why it's so important to work on these wounds, not only to have a loving, caring, bonding relationship, but to avoid any potential expression of illness that you may have genetically passed or epigenetically. So this is the essence of what I wanted to talk to you about, and that has to do with relationships as an opportunity to grow, as an opportunity to create good immunity, and as an opportunity to really explore the depth of love. And I've studied this from relationships that have been around for 40 years together, and they still laugh at their jokes. They're still excited about each other. And those are really good indicators. If somebody doesn't laugh at your jokes anymore, take a look. You're either repeating your jokes too much or there's a bit of a dissonance there in a relationship. So just be aware that relationships can become a beautiful thing and that they don't have to have, as they get older, that you lose interest and sexual drive. That's not true. It's the creativity of the relationship that allows it to stay healthy. And this is what I wanted to bring to you. So, Guardians of the Heart is an opportunity to grow in your relationship. and to expand what's called the health span, which is more important than the um, lifespan. Lifespan is how long you've lived. Health span is how long you've lived healthy. And the longer the health span, the greater the possibility of you living a longer, healthy life. And this I've learned from centenarians, people who are over 100 years old that I studied all over the world. And they live long, not so much because of genetics. Genetics is only 25%, 20 to 25%. It's how they view the world, how they deal with relationships, and how they invite immune enhancers in their lives rather than immune depleters. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be doing these on a more regular basis, so I'll have an audience coming on. But this will be posted in the lecture series, and you can watch it anytime you want. Enjoy, and it's been great seeing you again.